Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Road to Grandmaster Series. This is my second over-the-board chess tournament, and this is the third round recap of that tournament. Friendly reminder, this tournament is in New York City. It's an I Am Norm round robin, so it's 10 players. Everybody plays everybody, and there are chances to get an international master norm. Now, I'm already an international master, so I'm just trying to farm. I'm trying to win as many games as possible. Now, in the third round, I'm actually playing the highest rated player in the entire section, and the only Grandmaster, Grandmaster Maxim Novik, whose rating is 2,409. And you may ask, why would a guy who's a Grandmaster play in a section where you can get an IM norm? You can ask the same thing about the IM. The point is that, like, to get these norms, people have to play titled players. And what you do is you invite people to play, and Maxim gets to play 9 games. He gets to try to beat people as well. And generally, they get an appearance fee. I don't get an appearance fee because I'm a bum. No, because, my friend is an organizer. He had a spot. He let me play. And, you don't do these types of transactions with your friends. So, when you're one of the top 2 or 3 players in the section, in sections like this, it's not uncommon that people just make draws in 10 moves because they don't really have anything to play for. But I wanted to play. I think he wanted to play too, but you always kind of have that in the back of your mind. So he played e4, and I played Caro-Kann. Now, here's something interesting about this game, right? So, Maxim plays Caro-Kann himself. So every game, he plays Caro-Kann. So I'm playing Caro-Kann against the Caro-Kann guy. So we both have played probably tens of thousands of Caro-Kann games. Maxim and I have single-handedly brought Caro-Kann theory backwards like 10 years. No, just kidding. Now, here's another funny thing. He usually takes or plays knight c3, but I looked at his games, and in recent months, especially on chess.com, where his account is just his name, so it wasn't really mysterious, he's been playing e5. So I actually had a feeling bishop f5 and h4, the Mikhail Tal variation, was coming. H4 is actually in my e4 course, so maybe Maxim has studied it. Joking aside, the point is to play g4 and advance on this side of the board. Now, h6 is a move here, h5 is a move here. There's a lot of other moves you can play, like queen c7. I've even played a6, which is a very provocative move. You basically just try to get your opponent to come here. I've played everything here. And for this game, I had prepared h5, bishop d3. And then here, rather than trading, which is played in 99% of games, there's this move queen to d7. And this has almost never been played. It's not a very powerful surprise weapon. I mean, it's like move 5 in a Caro-Kann, right? But in a nutshell, you're just defending your bishop, and you're kind of hoping that your opponent plays knight f3, because then you can play bishop g4. So you avoid the trade, and you get this pin. Now, my opponent's not stupid. He's an experienced Grandmaster. He's played, like, legends of the game. I mean, if you look at his history, like, he has played 30 years ago in the former, Soviet Union. He was playing, stars, and he played in, championships, and we actually did play in 2019 in the Czech Republic. We played in a blitz tournament. So good player, not going to play knight f3. And instead of that, he plays knight e2. Now here, there's a line which goes takes, takes, and basically black can very quickly play for c5. You can just give up this pawn. You try to win it back. He defends it. You play knight c6. He plays f4. You play here and then here. And, there's this, long sequence of moves where he puts the bishop here, you play bishop e7, he castles, and then you play for this move b6. Something along these lines. And I remember sitting at the board going, yeah, but I'm kind of sleepy. Maybe I'm misremembering, and I gotta give up a pawn, and then I gotta, spend the whole middle game trying to get the pawn back. And then even if I, play all the correct moves, I'm still a pawn down, which is normal in the Caro-Kann positions when, white has these 3 and you have D and B and pressure. But I was like, I'm just going to play e6, and then I'm going to play c5 on the next move. And that's what I did. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to put the knight behind the pawn. So we're basically playing in advanced French, right? You look at the structure. This is very typical of advanced French, meaning e4, e6, d4, d5, e5, c5. And I'm going to click to the actual game now. Right, all the pawns are the same, except I don't have the bad French bishop. So, in theory, this should be an improvement for black. He played knight f3, and here I was really struggling to understand something, and I think this will kind of come with experience. I was really struggling to understand, should I take right away? point being, if I take right away, he's got to take with something. Let's say he takes with this knight. Can I just develop like normal? Or is this helping him? You know, I didn't understand. And I kind of had a feeling, you may remember some of my other previous Caro-Kann games, like I also thought like maybe this is good for me because in the long run I actually have a target, right? Like you clear the queens, you clear some pieces. This will be a potential long-term weakness. And so here I was already considering taking on d4. But then I was thinking like, well, if he was afraid of taking with the knight, wouldn't he have gone c3? Like, wouldn't it have made sense to play c3? So I said, okay, let me not rush. I'm going to play knight c6. He castled. And again, I'm like, should I take on d4? Should I do this now? Take on d4? He goes here. Maybe I play bishop c5 and play knight e7. Like, this seems very natural. All the ideas are kind of flowing. But then he's going to develop his bishop. He's going to go here. He's going to put his rooks in the center. I was like, do I really want to unclog his position? I had seen some variations where you kind of line up over here. So he goes bishop g5. Here I spent a lot of time because I calculated this move knight f5, and I rejected it because I put pressure on his center, but I didn't like takes, and this move king h2. Now, the engine thinks I'm stupid, and in retrospect, yeah, I suppose looking at this, I'm not really sure what I overlooked, but in a nutshell, I will tell you, like, in a nutshell, what my point of king h2 was. I was like, well, if he gets to do this, he's going to have a really powerful position. As you can see, right, his king is somehow safe. He needs, by the way, it's important for me to tell you, king h2 is important because there's this pin, so he cannot play knight g3 straight away. So I thought knight f5 made no sense. I thought it made more sense to go knight g6. It's not accurate. It did not make more sense to go knight g6. And as you can tell from my time, you know, I spent 10 minutes. And I do have this tendency in the second game of the day. This is the second game of the day. Brain just doesn't work. And actually, if you watch the live stream of this game, I was yawning. I must have yawned 20 times. I was so tired. But the problem is I can't drink caffeine at 6 p.m. because I'll never sleep. So it's not easy. I mean, you know, a lot of people do a lot of like difficult labor and difficult jobs in this world, and you would think like, oh, what, you have to play 2 long chess games in a day? What are you crying about? And in a sense, you are correct, but in another sense, it is very exhausting. So he went c3, and I went to carry out my plan of trading the bishop, putting some pressure on the pawn, so he goes g3. Now here I thought g3 was a symbolic victory for myself because I thought he cannot put his knight on g3 anymore. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm making progress. Now let's trade the bishops. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the knight back. This was my plan. So then I can put the knight on f5. So I've traded his bishop. His bishop no longer annoys me. I mean, I even had potentially, I was thinking to like long castle, which is kind of deranged. But this was, you know, this was sort of the idea. So I went back to e7. The point is he cannot take my pawn, because then I play knight e5. If he tries to attack my knight, I can even play f6, and then I can even begin like, you know, my own attack. I can play like king f7, knight c6, and I can move my pieces forward. So I thought the position is looking pretty good. Then he played rook e1, and this was a good move. The point of rook e1 completely going off this file is that he anticipates that this file is going to open up. So, you know, for example, just very drastic example, take, like he goes back, you know, you see the makings of some problems. There's another problem though, and the problem is that if I play knight f5, now taking is actually dangerous for me. And you may be like, what? Why is it dangerous? Well, had he taken in the previous position, my knight is still here. So my knight can help my other knight. You know, I can play like knight c6, right? I can play, and the difference is, if I put the knight on f5 and then he takes, when we get here, this is actually a bad version because my knight is a problem, and I don't have a place to put my king. If I put my king over here, this is always mate. So now he starts attacking my knight. And I realized this during the game. Like, my plan originally had been here, don't even think about it. But then I was like, well, I can't go here because now he can actually take the pawn, which is correct, as you can see from the evaluation. Unfortunately, then I panicked. Panic is the wrong word. But I just realized that knight f5, which had been my plan this whole time, is suddenly really dangerous, and I need to do something with the pawn here. So I thought, what could be more natural than just defending it? I mean, right? Like, what could be more natural? But apparently, structurally, this is a really bad decision. I came to realize this during the game. Like, b6 is actually a waste of time. It's not a good move. It weakens the light squares, and if anything, the pawn should be on a6, which is normal, followed by b5. Like, this is the real way to play the structure. So I played this move b6, and let me tell you, below 2,000, it is not possible to explain why this is a bad move. It's just not possible. I mean, what could be more natural? Again, like, the point is simply to play knight f5 and for this pawn to always be protected. But the thing is, b6 on its own is very weakening. It weakens a lot of complexes over here. And like I said, if you ever play a6 now, b6 is weak. Whereas if you had played a6 with the pawn on b7, you could play b5 and it would never be weak. So he played rook d1. And finally, I was sitting here. And this is where I made a big mistake. I was really struggling to come up with a plan. Again, if I play knight f5, I thought he takes. If I take, he plays knight f4, and I was just thinking, where's my king going? Like, I can no longer go this way. I can't go this way because I lose the pawn. Okay, I'm going to play g6 easy. And then I was like, no, it's not easy at all. Okay, I just locked the position. No, because now he has e4. So at the very least, he starts targeting my weaknesses. I start protecting my weaknesses. Suddenly, I'm just losing a pawn. Which is why the move b6 was bad, because in the long run, I don't want the pawn on c5. What I needed to do was to take. And I didn't do this because I thought, well, why would I? Well, why? But yeah, just take. And I mean, he can't move his knight. It would have been much better to trade. And if we do this, at least get the knight off the board. And then the knight is not a problem. And then I play knight f5. And he can stop me from castling, but I have moves like queen e7 even. Maybe not queen e7. Fine. Rook c8. But I played b6. And then at this point, this is still the best move. So the plan is the same. Remember the plan all the way back in the beginning. The plan was still, I can take on d4. I can take the pawn on d4. And I waited too long, and finally here, which was my last moment, I was like, why would I take on d4 if I already played b6? So I played b6 with the point of, I'm going to move my knight so that if he takes me, this is protected. How would I possibly follow? Like, why would I play b6 and then take on d4? Why would I take on d4 with the inclusion of him bringing another piece to help defend? So I couldn't bring myself to take on d4. I just like... It not because of ego, but because I thought it was illogical. So I did what I thought was logical, which turned out to be really bad, which is this. I basically said, okay, I'm gonna lock the position so he can't break through. All right, we're gonna buckle down. We're gonna shutter the hurricane windows, and we're gonna do this. This is how we're gonna play the position. We are locking everything. He's got one pawn break that may or may not work. This is what we're gonna do. He went knight f4. I played g6. He went knight g2. Potentially going here. And at this point, I'm down 23 minutes on the clock, and I'm worse. Now, the position is +1. It's +1 because he has a space advantage, and because he kind of has... The game is in white's hands. It's not up to me. Like, white can choose to do nothing here. The game will end in a draw. I cannot choose to do nothing. I have to defend. All right? He plays b3. Now... I thought it was really dumb of me to take. I thought, why would I take? That just gives him another front of attack, right? So now he's going to try to attack me on two sides of the board. I'm not really calling the shots here. I mean, he's very well protected. So he played b3, and I went rook c8 because I thought me getting a rook there is a win. Then he snuck past my pawn. He played rook b1, and again the computer wants to take, which just I can't even fathom. Maybe it's explainable. Maybe it's, something like this, just disallowing these pawns to move forward. But in the game, I just played knight g8, and I came up with this plan to play knight g8, knight h6, knight g4. I thought this was pretty smart. It's not smart. You will see. b4. I was like, why is he locking the position? So here I wanted to play queen a4, but if you've been following this tournament, you know that in multiple games at this point, I've gotten my queen into really stupid situations. So I was thinking like, rook a1, queen c2, I was like, oh, I'm going to trade the queens. I mean, I was like, all right, played b4. I followed through with my plan. You will notice also he's playing very quickly. I mean, he's playing very fast. Like, look, he spent some time on b3, but then he quickly played rook b1. He quickly played b4, quickly played b5, right? And then he played a4. Again, I thought, go here, you know, sneak around. But then I thought, I think I'm going to get my queen trapped. So I'm glad I didn't do this. So a4, and I still have no idea what he's trying to do. So I just castle, which is kind of funny. Castle on the 24th move. 15 minutes versus 39. Plays rook a1. I play rook b8 because I thought his idea was to go a5. Rook b8 was stupid. Should have played rook a8 to prepare quick counterplay. But again, the game is sort of slipping out of my control, right? At 15 minutes, he has 38. He's playing very fast, clearly taking over the game. So I'm not really like, my head's not really in it, right? So I play rook b8. Here comes the wake-up call. Queen f4. And at this point, I realize I really messed up. Because he's going to get f3, g4, which is going to force me to shove my pieces all the way back. And I have no play. And I suddenly start realizing, oh, it's much worse than it seems, because when I had locked the position up, I thought, I'm going to lock it up and defend it. Queen f4 is a huge problem. So 15 minutes on the clock, this is coming straight down, and I'm like, oh man, all right. Well, time to defend this position, I guess. So I played king h8, came up with this idea. Computer hates it. I thought this was pretty smart. The point is, I'm going to bring my knight back here. I'm going to put my knight where my king was, like this, to get out of the way of the queen. And then when he goes g4, I'm going to play knight g7. Now, the engine doesn't like this. The engine thinks that now I'm totally suffocating, and it's going to slowly win the game. But the top engine move here from the computer is queen c1, which I don't think... I don't know. I mean, I don't get it. The point is then to play, like, knight f4. It's not even still clear what the plan is. Like, queen e8. And now the plan is to play king h1. And, like, if I just keep shuffling queen c2... And basically, he crashes through on f7. Like, so I need to always monitor the position. Now, it's findable, I suppose, but I think he was looking for a forcing way through. So here I played queen e8, and here he played knight f4, knight h6, rook a2. This is on the way. So if I do nothing, he's going to play rook g2, he's going to take on h5, and the game will end because he's going to, you know, checkmate me. That's it. If I take with the knight, he's going to take with the knight, and queen g7 is a mate. I can go here, but he has knight g5, knight g7, this type of stuff. Rook a2. 11 minutes versus 32, position slowly spinning out of control. Now, I have played my last few moves pretty quickly. So once I realized that the position was bad, I quickly played king h8, knight g8, knight g7, and I set up this defensive wall. I played queen e8 to put pressure on these two pawns. And also kind of X-ray defend this if necessary, potentially look for an f6 counter break. And when he went here, I played this move, I didn't even think about it. I thought maybe 40 seconds. The point is, I have to move. I have 11 minutes. If I spend half my time here working out the complications of everything, I will now have 6 minutes for the rest of the game. This is just a maturation as a chess player. I knew the position was really bad. Gotham 1.0 would have been really, like, mad at himself and annoyed, but I was just kind of like, I'm getting outplayed. I'm worse. Game's not over. a6. Now, if he goes all in, I'm going to take... Now, I don't think I can take on b5, but I might be able to, and the point is that I'm not going to take back, but rather I'm going to jump in the way, and I'm going to block him. I can probably even do it with this knight so he can't come forward. So he has something to think about now, and he spent... 15 minutes. He really didn't like this move. And I realized as he was sitting there, he had been playing quickly, confidently, taking over the game. And I realized a6 is problematic. Point being, I'm going to go rook a8, which is why my rook should have been there in the first place, by the way. As you can see, I wasted a lot of time in this game because I was unsure about the position. But because it's a closed position, you kind of have this luxury of being able to maneuver and sort of, you know, fix your mistakes. Point is that I'm going to take this, and then this next pawn is hanging. So it's not so simple. Now, he played rook b1. I took on b5. Notice, I'm not going below 11 minutes. I'm not going below 11 minutes. So I'm playing every move really fast. He plays rook back to b4. Now it's 11 versus 15. I will remind you, the game was 33-11 and I was much worse. Now suddenly, he has 2 rooks committed to this side of the board defending. So that's like a huge shift. And on top of that, if I ever manage to break through and get to his king, his attack posed some serious weaknesses to his own king. His king doesn't have shelter anymore. So I play this move, rook a5, again, not going below 11 minutes. I play this move very quickly. The point of rook a5 is to play b5. So the point is to prepare the move b5. And if this happens, he has no advantage at all. Also, I think I can even, wow, the computer wants to sack the queen for the 2 rooks. That's pretty gangster. And then like bring the second rook. That's pretty cool. So I played rook a5 and he played rook b2. It's now 14. He's only up 2.5 minutes. So the game is completely back. I take on a4, he takes on b6. I was a little bit annoyed at myself here, actually. I thought like maybe I should have gone for b5 quicker. The thing is, if we trade a pair of rooks, he has almost nothing. He has almost nothing. 1 rook is not going to cause any problems here. But 2 rooks, and this was very smart by him, 2 rooks will. Now 2 rooks can both defend the king and counterattack me. And I was a little bit annoyed at myself that I allowed this. My original intention at this point was to play rook a1, force him forward, and play something like rook c1. But the truth is, I'm not the one calling the shots here. Like, again, the momentum of the game has shifted. So you would think, oh, just go attack his king. But I do have to remember, I had to sit there and tell myself, buddy, you have 1 active piece. He has 5. Every piece he has is good, and he has shelter. And he's going to play rook b8 maybe, or rook b7. The attack is not over. The momentum feels like it's shifting, but it's a little bit superficial. So I played this move, rook a3. I thought rook a3 was a smart move. It is a smart move. The engine defense here is absurd. The engine defense here is to abandon the g-pawn. I don't think that's findable. To abandon the g-pawn, and not just abandon the g-pawn, it's to stop protecting c3 and go here. To create a triple barrier, you chuck these pawns. So you chuck both of these pawns, and you chuck this pawn, and you just try to go to b8. And you win here because of queen g6. So the idea was to escort the rook to b8 and hit the g6 pawn. I mean, I don't think queen e1, queen b1 is findable. I think it's much more natural to play what he did, which is to bring his knight back. And again, at this point, I'm like, okay, here's my queen. And so my intention here was to play queen d1 and rook a1. So I'm getting my queen and my rook to his first rank, which is very, very, very scary for him. But the game is still on. And here he surprised me. He played queen f4. And there's actually a spoiler here because this stupid interface does this. He played queen f4. And here's the thing about in chess, you can offer a draw. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to make a move, offer a draw, and press the clock. He played the move, pressed the clock, and then a minute later, he offered me a draw. Technically, I think it's against the rules, but like, I'm not a teacher's pet. But that's a bad sign. If a guy makes a move, looks at his move for a minute, and is like, oh, I offer a draw. Those of you who don't have tournament experience, generally, that means they blundered something. Now, I didn't think he blundered anything. Queen f4 is a very annoying move. The idea, basically, of queen f4 is like, okay, is to like sacrifice the knight and then, you know, take on h6, is to play rook b8. And I realized here, I don't have a checkmate. If I play queen d1 and he goes king f2, I mean, where's my mate? He's just going right here. His king is shelled, and there's a really annoying line here, which is queen, let's say, f1, king e3, knight f5 doesn't work. It looks like I'm mating him, but he's gonna sacrifice his queen. His queen sacrifices for the knight, and then he mates me. He mates me because his knight is protecting every important square. So once I saw this, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this draw. Now, there was one more thing I could have done, which is queen d1 and maybe queen h1, which is what he showed me after the game. But he told me I wasn't sure who was better here anymore, and I didn't want to risk it. Okay, fair. You know, he didn't want to risk it. Fine. But actually, the engine prefers white. So I guess he was afraid of this. He was afraid of, you know, the attack, which, I mean, I don't blame him. It does look very scary, and it's never too late to blunder checkmate. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna get mated here. But the truth is, if he had held his nerve a little bit better, he might have won the game, because I'm not playing for a win here. But what had happened was I totally flipped the table psychologically. Not actually, I didn't flip the table, but from 11 versus 32, 33, I turned it into, you know, what was it at the end? Like 9 versus 14, 15, and all the momentum coming in here. And he kind of got spooked by the counterattack, and he offered me a draw because he wanted to preserve at least half a point, which kind of makes sense. But I also had to battle my own ego here, you know. I really wanted to play Queen D1. I mean, I understood he didn't like his position, but I had to be like honest with myself. I don't think I have anything, and I didn't. I mean, it's symbolic, but I'm not mating the guy. I mean, there is no mate here, which is kind of insane that he can just hide on H3 and there's just no mate. Like, everything is covered. I mean, chess is such a stupid game sometimes. But a draw. And I'm proud of my character development in this game, because I feel like a previous version of myself would have absolutely lost it. So 2.5 out of 3. Tough games. I mean, really tough games. I'd like to play a few games in this event now, which will be a bit more smooth sailing, but not easy. Everybody's strong. You know, we keep going. 2.5 out of 3. I'm up 6 points. I'm 23-54 now. Up 32 points since returning to competitive chess. 12 games, 32 points. And I'll see you all for round number 4. Get out of here.